So if you've been alive and on planet Earth in the past couple of days, you'll have noticed that the greatest power couple in the history of certainly recent politics, and Donald Trump and Elon Musk, have split.
Elon and I had a great relationship. I don't know if it went well anymore. I was surprised.
We've never seen anything quite like this, and the both short-term and long-term ramifications could be almost unbelievable. Musk is talking about making a third political party, the America Party. Trump could get ousted from office if some of these accusations Musk is throwing around are true. The amount of dirt Elon has on Musk, the amount of political influence and power and money Musk has at his disposal. Could Musk be the end of Trump's presidency? What in the hell is even going on here? Now obviously there's a lot of politics swirling around this situation, accusations flying back and forth, but there's one thing that is objectively true. Elon Musk is correct about the economics. Now let me quickly explain this simply so we can all get along with it. The US national debt is at $36 trillion. Why does this matter? Why is this important? Well, the interest payments on that debt are larger than the US's national defense budget. The debt keeps going up, the US keeps having to pay more and more interest. Eventually this country's going to go bankrupt. And if you don't think that's possible, ask Argentina, ask Venezuela, ask Greece. When countries default on their debts, it sends them into an economic death spiral that can take a very, very long time to come back from, and will leave your country and its populace pretty much stranded for possibly generations. Now, the main way that the US will try and get out of this debt is to print money to essentially inflate away that debt. And the way that works is if they have a debt of $100 and they print more and more money, with inflation at 2, 3, 4, 5%, the real worth of that $100 debt goes down to 98, 97, 96. Effectively, the debt they have today will not be worth as much in real terms at the time they have to pay it back. But this also means that the purchasing power of that dollar for everyday Americans is also decreasing. Food, gas, toiletries, every expense you can think of will continue to go up in price. And even if their wages go up in price, usually there's a stealth taxation in here because governments don't tend to raise tax brackets in line with that increased wage. So even though you're not actually making any more in real terms, you can't buy anything more than you used to be able to 5 or 10 years ago on your salary, you're actually getting taxed as if you're one of the wealthier people in society. Now you also have the problem of a huge trade deficit that also adds to this national debt. A trade deficit simply means that you're importing more than you're exporting. To explain why this is a problem, a quick analogy. Imagine there's two farms, one grows apples, one grows potatoes, and they both have 10 acres each. The man growing potatoes one year doesn't grow as much, and so to trade with the apple farmer, the usual amount they would trade, the apple farmer says, okay, but to make up for the difference in how much we're trading, I'm going to take 1 acre of your land. They agree. The next year 9 acres versus 11 acres. The same sort of thing happens. Another acre goes to the apple farmer. Another acre, another acre, another acre. Eventually you reach a breaking point where, well, the potato farmer can't keep up anymore. And suddenly he's making potatoes pretty much just to pay off the apple farmer, just to try and get enough to trade, and then keeps having to sell more and more of his land because he simply can't afford to bring in as many apples as he wants. He can't essentially afford his lifestyle, which is the situation that many Western economies are currently in. If you think this is an American exclusive problem, oh boy, as someone from the UK, I can tell you we have it pretty much the same. And the reality is you end up selling more and more of your national assets, and eventually, well, if I replace the apple and potato farmer with China and the USA, for example, eventually China has so much of your debt that effectively you work for them. That the US taxation will be taken in purely to pay out money to the Chinese in the form of debt. That's not a situation you want to be in. You're working for another country. They effectively own you. Now that's a very, very quick and dirty version of all of this, but that is what Elon Musk is afraid of. That is why he is so anti-deficit. That is why Doge's massive slashes into spending, at times cutting perfectly good people's jobs. That's the justification behind it. It's essentially consequentialism, that the damage these cuts are going to do is far less than the damage that would be caused by the US defaulting on its debts. So Musk, to be fair to him, has consistently voiced this concern for years. Even sitting right next to Donald Trump, he's been voicing this concern.
And they've also got to address the deficit. So we've got a $2 trillion deficit. And if we don't do something about this deficit, the country's going bankrupt.
And this has sparked a war of words that is somewhat reminiscent of a messy couple's breakup. It's making both of them look even more psychotic, if that's something we believe was possible. And it would be kind of entertaining if it wasn't between two of the world's most influential people. Now, to say I'm not a Trump guy is an understatement, but this doesn't mean that I'm suddenly massively a fan of Elon Musk and I think he's the best thing in the world. It's very, very interesting to see Musk now proposing on Twitter the idea of building a third party in America to represent the 80% of people in the middle. If you do believe that the Democrats have been captured by the lunatic left and the Republicans have been captured by the lunatic right, well, it's an interesting time to be a centrist. If ever there was a time for a third party to truly rise in America, this would be it. Now, there's a whole number of things that are going to make that very, very difficult, but hell, it's as good a chance as probably we've ever had of that actually happening. It's interesting to see even the kind of Fox News watching right-wing base that Trump is so reliant upon actually seem to be siding with Elon when it comes to the economics of this situation. And more on that later. But going back to Elon, while I can agree with some of his economic views as well as the views on the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, he's not out of the doghouse here in any way, shape or form. Think of everything Trump has publicly said, stood for, had leaked about him, all of the many controversies. And this is the thing that made Musk fall out of him. This. Now don't get me wrong, the fiscal deficit is hugely important as a long-term issue, but this is the thing that tipped you off you might not want this guy to be the president. And it's especially funny is in his Twitter rants, he's saying that Trump owes him the election, that he was the Kingmaker. But should we now excuse the Kingmaker because he's realised he doesn't like his king? This strikes me as a little bit similar to putting Freddy Krueger in charge of a summer camp and then falling out with him because you don't like what he's putting on the cafeteria, you think he's serving the kids unhealthy food. You might not be wrong, it might even be an important issue, but this is your problem. This. Only this. Wow. What took you so goddamn long, man? No, he gets little to no credit for standing against the despot that he's put in place, by his own admission. Perhaps next time, don't. It's funny watching him now call Trump a liar and deciding to point out his many contradictions in quote tweets, while as recently as a week ago he was standing side by side with the man. It's equally amusing to hear him co-signing ideas from Warren Buffett in his tweets, a man who has more than enough wealth to shape elections, yet largely stayed at the sidelines, merely proposing ideas such as a tax on the uber wealthy named after himself. Now, there is a billionaire I could vote for. All of this has me thinking from Trump's side, he's having a war of words as he's liking to do, but there's an old phrase that you never pick a fight with a man who buys ink by the barrel. And the modern version of that would be don't pick a fight with a guy who owns one of the world's largest social media platforms. Trump is going to have even more negative press coming his way nowadays, and even he might collapse underneath the weight of it. And we're talking about a guy here who's survived more political scandals than, well, I think any other president has ever had, and I'm including Nixon in this. And then we come to the biggest hit of all here, the biggest thing that Trump has to fear, the biggest thing Elon said. You all know what I'm going to say, but I don't actually know if YouTube's going to let me say it. I have a feeling this topic is going to be one of those things like what Germany were doing a little while ago with their mustache model, that the algorithm is going to quietly filter out. So I'm going to refer to it as the island. Not the one from Lost, but the island. And the accusation is that Trump was on the island. Now surely even Teflon Trump cannot escape this one if it proves to be true, and I kind of doubt that Elon would be throwing this out so confidently if he wasn't sure. But the thing is, this still circles back to looking bad for Elon because you knew this, and a week ago you were friends with the guy. Excuse me? For what it's worth, those files coming out would be brilliant because, amusingly enough, it would actually help us clear out the swamp. There's an awful lot of people who will be in those files who believe themselves able to get away with anything, and getting rid of those people very expediently from positions of power could only be a benefit to everyone. Now, with all this going on, and especially with so many of people who should in theory be Trump's allies, especially his right-wing base, rallying around the economic message of Musk, we could see Trump going from a position of seemingly great political strength to incredible political weakness very, very quickly here. And this would presumably lead to all of the grovelling political careerists who have fallen in line with the Make America Great Again crowd, promptly getting their knives out and digging in. And first on that list would likely be grovelling political careerist vice president. And this could all make extremely compelling viewing if you manage to ignore the potentially far-reaching real-world consequences long enough to enjoy the show.
What's your view on Elon Musk as of today? I mean, have you heard from him at all? Is your
honestly, I've been so busy working on China, working on Russia, working on Iran, working on so many things. I'm not thinking about Elon. You know, I just wish him well.
Is Elon Musk going to save America? Will he be the catalyst to fight the spiraling debts that the US economy is finding itself falling backwards into? Will he be the one who can finally help to oust Trump and his crowd of deranged mad people? Will he be the one to form a third party and shake the foundation of US politics to its core? Who the hell knows? The guy is bizarre. He somehow comes across as, in some ways, very intelligent, obviously intelligent, but in other ways kind of an idiot. And if you want to prove that, go and look at his Elden Ring build. It's really, really painful. In any case, this is all just thoughts at the end of this. Let me know how you're feeling about this mega couple implosion, and hell, if you enjoyed this, why not do all the YouTube things? It'd be nice for me. No? Okay.